How does a lazy launch sound to you? Pretty good, am I right? This is my favourite way to launch, and today I'm sharing it with you. Welcome to the Lou Blakely Show. You're in the right place if you're a service provider who is ready to transition into a more freedom-based business model with digital products. In this podcast, I share with you a unique combination of launch strategy, energetics, and mindset to create true, long-lasting success. It's time to ditch the burnout for good, create the business that you truly want, and share it with the world. Let's get started. Welcome to the latest episode of The Lou Blakely Show, the podcast where you'll learn how to use strategy, mindset, and your energetic alignment to create your dream online business. Today I'm talking about a launch method. A launch method is something like a webinar funnel, a challenge funnel, a paid workshop funnel, or in this case, it's the lazy launch funnel. Have you ever seen people say, I just sent out a couple of emails, posted a couple of times on social media, and I sold out? I know I have. Have you seen those kind of posts and thought, what are they actually doing? Like, how do they achieve that? This, in essence, is the lazy launch, and it's what I'm going to teach you about today. So what is the lazy launch method? Basically, a lazy launch is a launch that doesn't have a launch event. So there's no free or paid challenge, there's no webinar, there's no paid masterclass, whatever that kind of launch event could be. Like, there's lots of options there. It just doesn't have that part. It doesn't have that mechanism. So it's simply a period of time when the cart to your course will open and close, and you will share it with your existing audience only. So I call this the lazy launch because it's simple, and compared to the other launch methods, it's very, very easy to put together. It is also referred to as an email launch or an email only launch. So it involves an email series that is written and sent out to your list, and possibly, but not essentially, it could also include a few social media posts. But you don't have to do the social media posts, and if you're really not interested in launching on social media, or you'd like to try the lazy launch and not do the social media part, then I do recommend to go and listen to episode 37 because I share quite a lot about that there. So when is the right time to use a lazy launch? So the thing with lazy launches is that you can't use them all the time. I'm sorry, because I know they sound good. And as I said, they're my favorite way to launch. But the best times to use, or circumstances to use a lazy launch, are when you've had an online course that's been open to join like all of the time. Maybe it's been sitting on your website and you've been hoping people will sign up whenever they feel like it. And more often than not, this is not effective. So if you've been in that situation, you have had something sitting on your website and you've realized that you need to close the doors in order to generate more sales and go into actually a launching process rather than just having it open all the time, this is a perfect time to simply put a deadline on when the doors are closing. Tell your audience that the doors are closing, create a series of emails that you send to your email list to let them know about all of this, and then encourage them to join before the closing date. Super simple, and this works amazingly well. Another time that a lazy launch might be a good option is when you simply don't have the bandwidth for a full launch. So maybe you're on holiday, but you want some extra cash. Maybe you just don't have much time or energy, but you would like more sales, and let's be real, would always like more sales, right? Another time when a lazy launch is a good option is when you're jumping on a popular spending season like Black Friday. So Black Friday is a great time to do a lazy launch, as is Christmas, New Year's, etc. All of those times when you might not particularly want to be online too much, but again, you'd like some sales. Now, another amazing thing about the lazy launch is that you can fully automate the whole thing, right? So you don't actually even need to be present for it to happen. It can also be a potential launch method for your first course launch if, and only if, you already have an email list, and it needs to be at least 200 people, right? So using the lazy launch as a first ever launch method for your first launch can be good, and it as a way to pre-sell your new offer. So if you have a list that is fairly engaged, these people are talking back to you, you've been sending them regular emails, then that's definitely an option for you. There is a particular circumstance where a lazy launch could work for your first launch. Now, I just want to share a wee story of one of my clients using a lazy launch. So my client, Leanne Bassett, if you can go and check her out on this podcast. I have interviewed her on there. I think it's around episode 30, maybe 29. And she did a lazy launch at the end of last year, just after she'd gotten back from holiday. It was also Black Friday, and it was also nearing the Christmas holidays. So she didn't want to do a live launch. She had already done live launches previous to this. The really cool thing that happened when Leanne did her lazy launch is that she matched her previous launch results where she had done the big thing, like the full launch with the webinars. And for this particular launch, she had done a short, easy and lazy email launch with just a few emails to her list, and she did do a couple of posts on social media, and she was able to match her results from her previous launch before that. I personally like to think of lazy launches as the reward for doing that harder work beforehand and building up that awareness, the following and the email list in your previous launches. And that brings me to my last point, which is the downfalls of a lazy launch. Now, really, there's not really many downsides to the lazy launch because they are so good. But here's the big kicker. Lazy launches are not something to be used all of the time or the only way to ever sell your course. So I do not recommend lazy launches just being your go-to strategy every single time you launch. Now, why shouldn't you use lazy launches all the time? The thing is, if you're relying on lazy launches, you're also potentially being quite lazy with your marketing and not growing your audience. Let's be real here. So just launching over and over and over again to your list without any real growth or nurture in between is a no-go zone. You'll quickly fatigue your list. Your list will start to get smaller as people unsubscribe because people just don't want to be sold to the same thing over and over and over again. So I recommend to do lazy launches 2 to 3 times a year, and that is it. I do not view them as a replacement to other ways to launch. It's simply something to utilize when the time is right. So that's the lazy launch. Does it appeal to you? I'm sure it does. If there's one takeaway, though, that I want you to walk away from this episode with, it's this. The lazy launch is not a replacement for your regular launching strategy. It's more of an opportunity to take advantage of at certain times where it may suit you, it may suit the market, or it even may suit your customers. So make sure you're always growing your list and utilizing other launch methods at times as well to really elevate your awareness and grow your email list and sales. If you are doing that, then the results that you can get from your lazy launches are actually going to be quite a lot more. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. Those ratings really help me get this podcast in front of more people, which means I'll be able to create even more free content for you. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next episode.